I'm super excited to be part of Talk to a Scientist. I have been watching this session over the last few, months and this last year, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. Okay, so tell me that you can see my slides. We good?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, great. So we're going to start today by talking about why is your brain even plastic? Right. So when you think of something that's plastic, you'll think of a plastic bucket. Many of you will have a plastic bucket in your bathroom, or you have elastic rubber bands which you stretch and you move around. And that's what you think about when you think plastic, right? You don't normally think your brain is plastic. So what does this even mean? So, plastic would be these cups and hopefully you're not littering the countryside with any of this, but this is the sort of stuff when we think about plastic. And yet, every neuroscientist you ever talk to, so who's a neuroscientist? A neuroscientist is a scientist who works on the brain and is most excited about the brain. Every brain scientist or neuroscientist is going to turn around and say, oh, the coolest thing about the brain is that it's plastic. And yet this doesn't make any sense because it doesn't look anything like a bucket and it absolutely doesn't look like these objects. So what's going on? What do they mean when they say your brain is actually plastic? Is it like this Play-Doh? Most of you would have played with it at some point and squished it and stretched it and made all kinds of things with it. The one obvious thing with Play-Doh is it actually can be made into many different things. It changes shape, it changes form. You can make all kinds of things with it. So is that what we're hinting at? So there's this terrific book called Your Fantastic Elastic Brain, which means your brain can change. Okay, so pretty much the reason why they say your brain is plastic is not because it's made of plastic, but because like plastic, it's bendable and adjustable and stretchable and modifiable. Okay, it can change. It can really change. So that's the reason why they say your brain is plastic. Your brain can change. And so it's like a rubber band in that it can stretch, reform, modify, change its shape. So what we're going to do is ask what our brain actually looks like. Some of you might have actually seen it in some sort of a science book, or those of you who are a little further in your journey in school might have opened up a book that actually has a brain in it. But let's take a little journey to actually look at what the brain looks like. So this is you, all of us, when we were 1 month of age. Okay, when we were inside our mommy's tummies and we were 1 month of age, this is what we look like.
So we're
all right. So
introducing ourselves.
Let me just shut off the volume on this.
After fertilization, when the entire embryo.
Yeah. So you can see that it's this object, and there's some number here saying 10,000. And over here on the side is actually this coin. And that coin would be like a rupee coin. It's an American coin, doesn't matter. It's about the size of a 1 rupee coin. And you can see what's happening. This baby is growing at 3 months, but something's happening inside the baby. That gray tube that you see is actually the beginnings of the brain and the spinal cord. And look at the number of cells that are being added. And so, of course, you're growing bigger and bigger in your mother's tummy. And along the way at 6 months, you're looking at the number of millions of cells that are beginning to show up in the brain. This thing is beginning to look a little bit like what you imagine a brain would look like. And at about 9 months, you're going to have this incredible looking object sitting within your body, this mushy structure, which is going to allow you to dream, to think, to write poetry, to play football, to do everything that you do, right? This little structure actually does most of the work and is essential to our body. So this is what your brain actually looks like. So let's do some fun facts, okay? It weighs about 1.5 kilogram, right? Many of you would know what about 1.5 kilogram would be. Okay, just think of a 1 liter bottle, little bit more than that, right? Round about that is the size, is the weight of your brain. Unless you're an elephant, and I don't think any elephants are attending this particular talk, then you're dealing with a 6 kilogram brain, right? So depending on the animal that you are, the weight of your brain will be different. And in our brain, we have 86 billion neurons. So you can see the number of zeros behind that number 86. There is no neuroscientist that sat and counted every single one of these because they wouldn't be done in their own lifespan. But we have a good estimate. We have a generally good idea that this is the kind of number that each of us has in our brain. And then there's this word now, new word that's come out, neuron. What is a neuron? And something else in this list, which is synapse. I haven't introduced these terms to you. I've just told you there's a brain and I've told you that it weighs this much. So now we need to think about what are these new words that we are learning, right? So here is a cartoon drawing of a neuron. It's a cell. Okay. It's one of the big cells or the important cells in the brain, but it's not the only cell. It's the one that we spend a lot of time thinking about. There are other cells as well, but this is a neuron or a nerve cell. All right. And it has a body. Think about this like your head or this zone. And then it has all this. If my hair was electrocuted right now, it would look kind of like those dendrites sticking all out. So they are there like the antenna to receive signal. And then there is this long body or this long axon that is going to send away signal. Okay, so this is like a signal receiving and sending device. It allows you to communicate signal from one cell to another cell. And the place where it actually does this is this end of the nerve cell, which is this end called the axon terminal, where it synapses with the next neuron. So if there are two neurons that want to talk to each other, they have to find a way to sort of connect so that they can send signals to each other. They have to really communicate, otherwise it doesn't work. So if you think about it, there are 86 billion of these creatures floating around in our brain. And you almost have most of them in place actually when you're a baby. It's not like you add that many more after that. So they're already in place when you came out of your mother's tummy. They're really there. And yet, that little thing that emerges out can't walk, can't talk, certainly can't sing, is not going to be able to, write the alphabet or any of that. But a lot of the stuff is in place already. So why is it that after that you learn all these things, right? So if you take a 4-year-old child and you say, can you start reading a difficult book? Obviously not, because they have the machine and it's in place, but it hasn't been used yet. It hasn't been put to use fully. And so these are the synapses that are eventually going to allow cells to talk to each other. And each neuron will have something like 1,000 to 10,000 synapses. So instead of a billion neurons, you're talking about quadrillion synapses. When you add that and multiply it, it's a large number, 10 to the power of 15, 10 with 15 zeros behind it. Okay, that's the number for the number of synapses you have in the brain. All right. But do they all look like this? Okay, this is a cartoon, right? And even the cartoon is already telling you we don't all look like each other. Just like all of us in the Zoom meeting are not looking like each other, much the same way. All these nerve cells in your brain don't look like each other. Each of them is a little different. All right. So they're like, yeah, we might be kind of same, but we are still different. We are doing our own thing a little bit. So here's this fellow who's the cell body's up there. Here's this stubby little cute fellow who's looking a little bit different. And so each nerve cell can be a little different from each other. All right. And how do they communicate? So let's get this muted and let's look at it. Again, this is a cartoon. All right, this is a cartoon illustration of how nerve cells are going to send signal from one nerve cell to another. So here again is that cell body in purple. It has these dendrites and there's this long axon through which it's going to communicate with its partner. And it's going to send signal from one cell to another. And what are those signals? They're like small chemical messages. They're little chemicals that come out. They get dumped out. So we're going to zoom in on the synapse. There's a synapse right here. This video is going to zoom in on that. And you'll see that when the signal comes to the front of the synapse, to the beginning part of the synapse, there will be little packets of chemicals that get dumped out. And the other receiving end, which is the dendrite of the next neuron, receives the signal. Okay. So you're going to have these little, here it goes. You're going to dump out these chemicals. They're going to diffuse or make it across the short distance. Then they're going to bind to the dendrites of the next neuron, and so on. The signal is going to go to the next cell. And like this, signals move long distances. Now imagine you're a giraffe and you're out for a walk in the middle of some big forest. For you to do this walk, signal is going to have to go from your giraffe brain all the way down to your foot. And you can imagine how many meters that is. Signal has to go fast. You can't take very long to say, oh, I would like to move my leg. Then maybe I will move my other leg. Maybe tomorrow I will move the leg forward. It's not going to work, right? So especially if there's a lion chasing you, you don't have this kind of time. So this is going really fast. Signals are going super fast from one place to another. So,
Vidita, shall we stop for few questions?
Good.
Yes, okay.
Good.
So,
and we are actually, this is a perfect in-between stop because this is my mini quiz in the middle.
Okay, very nice. So let them get primed. So Parthiv just says neurons are not neutrons, right? He just wants to get this clear.
Yes, neurons are not neutrons. You think of the way that all biological things are made up of cells. Just that the cell in the brain is called a brain cell. Someone decided to call it a nerve cell, and that nerve cell became neuron. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's how it became neuron. But otherwise, it's just a cell in the brain.
Okay. And then Vidita Bhargavi asks a great question. What are those chemicals which are getting dumped out and transferred?
And each of them is a little different. So for example, there's a little molecule called GABA, and there's another molecule called dopamine, and there's another molecule called glutamate. It doesn't matter what the names of these molecules are, but there are many hundreds of different kinds of molecules, and they get packaged into these little packets and they get dumped out. Okay, so they're different kinds. And I told you, no one neuron is identical to another neuron. They look different in the way their shape is, the way they are, where they are in the brain. They also sometimes are different in what they're releasing in these little packets.
So it's almost like giving a gift to someone, like Vidita.
Absolutely. You won't give the same gift to everybody. It'd be a bit boring. Right. Exactly.
You'll personalize it.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So shall we dive into our quiz? Can you hear me, Karishma? I think I froze for a second. All good?
Yes, all is good. You can continue.
Excellent. So now you can see on the screen lots of different brains. And the quiz that you have is I'm going to give you some hints of the animals that these things belong to. Okay. And you're going to try to tell me which brain belongs to whom. The clue is on the bottom right-hand corner. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see many of these brains compared to each other in size. So you'll have some idea. Okay. So there's a human brain. There's a monkey brain. There's a chimpanzee brain. There is a rabbit brain. There is a rat brain. There is a camel brain. There is a frog brain. And I think there's one more, but I can't remember. Yeah, I think there's a cat. Did I say cat? I said cat and rabbit both, right? Yeah. Yes. So this is what you're dealing with. Now the clues are on the right. And you're going to tell me, we'll start one by one. Maybe, Karishma, is it okay if I ask one person? You'll help me with this? Figure out who wants to answer?
Certainly.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure.
So let's start with the one, I think, which is the easiest. Top left-hand corner. This one. The top left-hand corner right here. Anyone know what that is?
So, Kavish says human. Pooja says human. But few do say chimpanzee. For example, yes. Avishai says chimpanzee, but most people are saying human.
So human is right, and chimpanzees are very close cousin. So the chimpanzee will kind of look like us. We're not going to look very different from each other. Okay. Look at the screen, the shot on the right-hand side bottom. That's your clue. So that's human. This thing is 1.5 kilos. All right. Normally it would have a lot of blood vessels and would look pink. But this has been taken out and is actually preserved. That's why it looks like this. Otherwise, it's full of blood vessels, etc. And very pink. Okay, what about these two right underneath the human? The one here and the one right underneath it. Any guesses?
Let's see what they put here. Kavish again says monkey. Okay. Let's see. What do the others feel? Pooja says chimpanzee. Akanksha says monkey. Chimpanzee. Parthiv says monkey. So mostly chimpanzee, monkey.
Absolutely.
Chimpanzee, monkey.
So those are cousins, right? They look kind of like us, and that's not very surprising. They do a lot of things better than us. Most of us will not be able to jump from one tree branch to another. They are significantly better at us than doing that. And that you realize, even though the brain size is smaller than us, there are some things they do much better than us, and there's some things we do much better than them. But it's an even divide, right? I will not be able to jump from the top of one tree branch to another tree branch without landing flat on my face. I think most of you will also struggle to do that. But most of us will be able to manage to spell out a letter or two. The chimp is kind of like a 4-year-old human in terms of communication abilities and can learn quite a bit of sign language, etc. Okay, so this is still a very interesting brain and does a lot of amazing things. Okay, let's go to the middle panel now. Okay, now this gets a little harder. We found the easiest one was the left hand. Now we have middle, right in the center. Let's take the one right in the center. I will give you a clue. This is one of my favorite animals, and I work on it in my lab.
Okay, so what do you think? Okay, Kavish says frog, Avishai says rat, Pooja cat, Abhishumat cat, Akanksha rat. Okay, Dharmi says rabbit, Janki says cat. So I think they're getting rabbit, rat, cat.
There is one correct answer in that. It's the rat. Okay, so that's the rat right here in the center. That's a rat. And someone said cat a little while ago. Did someone say cat? Right above it is the cat.
Oh, okay. All
Okay,
right.
that's the cat. And if you want to see them here in comparative size, you'll get a sense of what they look like on the right hand side. Okay, you get some idea of the size of the animal and the size of the brain. Okay, let's go bang to the bottom here. Okay, to the middle panel, bottom row. Any guesses on this one? Super interesting animal, quite beautifully adapted to living in very difficult places.
There's dog, Vidita. There's camel. There's rabbit. Camel. Lots of camel. Yeah, lots of camel.
It's camel. It's camel. And it's a super interesting animal. Imagine how much water it has to manage without when it walks very long distances. Can you imagine going for a long hike and not having water in a water bottle? What will happen to you after 2 hours? You will be like, please give me water, find me water. This animal is managing incredibly well, right? So it has a very interesting brain that manages things we can't manage. And our brain needs water. I'll come to that a little later. Okay, let's go to the right-hand side. We have 2 more left. You guys are doing super well, okay? Right-hand top corner. Any ideas on this one? This is not even in the drawings that are there below. This is one trick question I've stuck in here. One on the right-hand corner. I'll just tell you it's super small compared to these fellows. Super small brain.
Okay. Kavish says shark, but there's lots of frog. There's also cockroach. Frog, fly.
Frog. Excellent. Shark was a good guess. It would have been bigger. But frog is where we are at. And fly, no. Fly and cockroach are certainly not. Cockroach doesn't even look like a little brain. It has these connections. I wish I had a cockroach brain to show you, but it is a very interesting brain to look. It almost looks like a little ring. It's not very structured like these fellows. Okay. All right. Last one. You guys have done super well. Right hand, middle. Any guesses on this particular brain? It's here in our drawing, so we have a relative comparison. Again, a super interesting, fun, very cute animal.
Vidya, we're getting a lot of rabbit.
Rabbit it is.
And then we're also getting giraffe. Oh, okay. All right.
Rabbit it is. Absolutely. So well done, guys. Now we know that we actually share many features. What should be obvious from this is it doesn't matter whose brain you're looking at. Many things are in common, and some brains do certain things better and other brains do different things better. So obviously we think we have the coolest brain. We are humans, so we are always convinced our brain is like the coolest brain. We write poetry, we've been to wherever, the moon. Yeah, but we can't jump from one tree to another. And if you ask us to, like a cat, the cat can jump out of the first floor window and nicely land on its feet. If you and I were ever to attempt it, we will break our ankle, break a bone, and we'll be very lucky we don't cause serious damage to ourselves, right? So they have many things that we have not got, and we have things that they don't have. But all brains are cool. All brains are well worth studying. And so here, these are the brains that we have in front of us. Okay. So now let's ask.
Janki says this was a super quiz. And they really enjoyed it. Lots of engagement in the chat window. And Parthiv says Spider-Man can jump across trees. And
that is true. Spider-Man can, and so can Superman, can do weird things as well, and as well as Batman. But yeah, and Wonder Woman too. But unfortunately, those brains are not available to us for study. That would be great if they were. Okay, so now we have this brain, and now we saw this brain, and we saw this brain in so many of our own, like sort of in our head and in the heads of all these other animals that are really cool as well. And then we come back to the question of this plastic element, right? We said the brain is plastic, and we said it's capable of change. So what's on the left-hand side? These are these bendy straws. Many of you would have used them and bent them and made knots with them and twisted them and done all kinds of interesting things. And it's very fun to have one of those great straws. It's very difficult to clean inside it. But other than that, it's great fun to have these bendy straws. And the reason I'm using the bendy straw is to tell you that actually what you're doing with all of that, like changing it, reducing its size, increasing its size, tying them up together, you're doing a whole bunch of changes. Much the same way, your brain is also changing by a few things. It's changing by addition and subtraction. Most of you would know what an addition or a subtraction is, and you will know that it changes shape and it becomes stronger or weaker. It can do both. Okay, so this is what, here's your yoga and neuron in meditation pose. So you have a neuron here and it's doing interesting things. And then neurons can go for haircuts, where they actually go and say, I don't need so many dendrites. There are too many things coming out. Can we chop a few off? So it's gone to another cell. Actually, there is a cell in the brain that does this job rather well. It's called a microglia. It's the hairdresser of the brain. Okay. You go and you say, okay, now then this one say, keep steady. I'm going to cut off a few extra which you don't need. And that's true. Over time, you're also getting rid of some things that you do and you're acquiring new things. You're constantly changing. Okay. In addition to that, neurons like to hang out together. So they form like sort of clubs in a sense. They network. They like to make new contacts. They like to hang out with their friends. There's this whole club that they can belong to. And then once they're part of that group, they really make their contacts with each other very strong. And this is neural networking. But essentially what it is neurons talking to each other, getting super strong in their contact, very strong friendships. And then there are neurons that don't like to talk to each other anymore. So they kind of, it's like Katti and Batti, which you will all know about in school. Everybody has done Katti and Batti. So this is Katti and Batti. Okay. And then your neurons are very interesting cells because they get super excited about stuff as well. And sometimes they get even more excited than normal. So this is one way via which neurons can change. They can change how excited they are about something or the other. And they really increase their ability to change by forming strong bonds between pairs of neurons or groups of neurons. These are two neurons that are now tightly synapsing with each other. So there's change in many ways. You grow new dendrites, you chop off dendrites, you grow new synapses, you remove synapses, you change how excitable your synapses are, you make them more excitable, less excitable, you gang up together and form a group, then that group dissolves and goes away. So this is what's really happening in your brain in a sense. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question. Are you still here? Okay, how many people do we have? We have quite a few people. We have 37 people here. Now the question is, do we have 37 brains here or do we have 37 people here? Right? Just because 37 people are here, it doesn't automatically mean that 37 brains are still here. Because you could be here and now thinking about, on Monday it's my holiday. I want to get ice cream from this company and eat that. Your brain has gone somewhere else for a little bit of a wander, which is a good thing. But I'm checking, is your brain still here? Are you still with me? And we're going to do a little bit of testing to see that your brain is actually working right now. So what are we going to do? Let's give it some, what am I trying to show you with this cartoon?
Let's give it some. So you can type it in the chat window. Quiz. Everyone's yoga, exercise.
Correct.
Exercise.
We're going to give our brain some exercise. Okay. What we're going to try to do is do the things that actually make your brain change. We're going to do those kinds of things that make your brain change, and we're going to give it some exercise. So we are going to start with this. I'm going to put up a clue and you're going to solve the clue and put it in the chat, and then we'll see how we're doing. Let's go. All right. Here's a clue. What am I trying to show you with this?
Okay, let's see what they have to say. They say brain, brain, brain.
Correct.
Brain.
B plus rain together is brain, right? So this was super easy. Now it's going to start getting this was really easy to get you started. Now we'll start testing those neurons a little bit more to work a little bit harder. Okay. So here we are. Now this is something a little more difficult. I will tell you the clue that it is two words together. And let's see if anyone gets it. It'll be fun to see if you guys get it.
Again, there's lots of brain, brain, brain.
There is brain in there for sure, but there is a word before the brain.
Okay. Someone said Ria.
No,
R-I-A,
it's an
Ria.
adjective to the brain in a sense almost.
Someone said rib. Someone says rain.
That's great. You guys are
brain.
solving it to see if there are words. You're coming up with an interesting alternative quiz of its own. Yes, there is a rib in there. There is a bar in there. There's a ban in there. There's an air in there. But that's not what I was looking for. I'm going to show you this so you'll understand what I want you to do. It's scatterbrain. Do you know what scatterbrain is? Yeah, scatter is when it's all over the place, right? It's all scatter. And when you're scatterbrain, you're like, oh, I forgot to carry this today. Oh, no, I forgot that. So when somebody calls you scatterbrain, they're saying, don't be so scatterbrain. They're basically saying, how can you be so forgetful, right? So that was the clue. That's a scatterbrain. Okay?
So Vidita, Kaushik came close. Kaushik K says puzzled brain.
Puzzled brain. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's a scatterbrain. Great. Okay, we keep going. Let's stretch our brain. What are we currently doing? We are currently giving our brain a chance to do a little bit of exercise. Okay, so then here's the next one. Let's see how many people get this.
Yashi says axon. Pooja, Avishai, Akanksha. Oh wow, they've caught on. Yeah, lots of axon.
Right, so axon. Axon was that one end that's coming out of a neuron, which is going to send signal to the next cell, right? So this is an axon. Very good. You guys are doing super well. Let's ramp up the challenge, okay? We're going to exercise that brain a little bit more. All right, now this is really hard, okay?
Wow, this is hard.
This is a difficult
word.
It's a word it refers to some part of your brain that's very important for learning and memory. Okay. And it's a difficult one to get. But if you guys get this, just guess. You can go wrong. That's the fun part about it. You should guess and fail and try.
So, Vidita, as you were saying, Yashi, Akanksha, Abhay, Adrit, Ahir, Avishai, Sahana, Kavish, Adrit all say hippocampus.
That's it. Brilliant. Yeah, you nailed it. It's a part of the brain that's involved in your learning and memory, right? So you've in the last few attempts, you've clearly shown how plastic your brain is. In the beginning, you were like, what is this? That scatterbrain didn't come immediately. But look at what happened in like literally 2 minutes. You started adjusting your brain to saying, I understand these clues now. Now that I understand them, I'll get better and better at it. And the more, so by the way, anyone who wants to do this, there's a phenomenal website where I took all these from. It's called Neuroscience for Kids. It's run by someone called Eric Chudler. I'll put it in the chat later. And it's absolutely brilliant because it has all these brain hieroglyphics and you can have great fun playing with it. Okay, let's keep going. We'll have one more, I think.
So, I mean, we see head and ache and they're moving apart.
Correct.
So there's lots of headache in the window, but I'm sure it's more than that.
It's definitely more than that. It's 2 words. There's an adjective to the headache. It's some kind of a headache.
Okay, I think, yeah. All right, guys. Think. Yes, Aguru says split headache.
Splitting headache. Oh my God, I have a splitting headache. You said that, right? If somebody said, oh no, my head hurts, but it's not just a regular headache. It's a splitting headache. So yeah, absolutely. It's a splitting headache. Okay. So these are little brain hieroglyphics and it's just to show you what your brain does when you look at a problem and how you attempt to solve it, right? And you guys are getting them. All right, let's keep going. Here's another one. It's 2 words, if that helps.
2 words, okay. Okay, Yashi says spinal cord. Oh my God, and so does Akanksha. Oh my God, Vidita, their brains are really plastic at this point.
Absolutely. quick, right? So this is, and your brain is way more plastic than mine. Mine is not as plastic anymore. Karishma's is more plastic than mine, but hers is also not that plastic anymore. All of you have way more plastic brains than anyone else in your household. Okay. The younger you are, the more plastic your brain is, the more capable it is of doing things that there is no way your parents or your grandparents or your aunts or your uncles, it doesn't matter if they're a neuroscientist, they will also struggle to do what you can easily do with your brain. All right. So makes full advantage of it. When you are under 25, your brain is not yet fully formed, which means it's super plastic. And when you're under 10, you have like the best brain there. It is capable of making phenomenal changes. So use it because it's really capable of really changing. Our brains, I'm 50 years old. Now it's a struggle to get it to change very easily. Okay. You have to work at getting your brain to change. All right. It is a spinal cord. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Are your brains here? You are here, but have your brains also shown up? Fantastic. Okay. So now we're going to do one more quiz because this is what we're here to do, right? We're going to keep our brains plastic. Okay. So I'm going to show you something. I'm going to set the timer. 30 seconds is all you're going to have to look at this particular thing that's going to come up on the window. Look at it. Look at it super attentively because it's going to matter. Okay. So let me just look at my timer. Karishma, can you look at 30 seconds for me? And I'll just go to the next slide. And
yeah.
All right, let's go with 30 seconds. Done? Great. Okay. Now you're going to write down what you saw. If you have a piece of paper near you, try to write what you saw. Okay. If you have a sheet of paper somewhere or something, just scribble down all the stuff that you saw. You saw it for 30 seconds. And we are going to do something which is short-term memory. We're going to try to see how much of this your brain actually retained.
Fantastic.
And if you have older people around you, make them do the same thing if they saw it, and we'll see if based on age, people do better. My prediction is all the younger people will do better.
All right. We are testing it in real time, Vidita, right? So experimental neuroscience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So how much time do they have to write it down?
They can take a minute.
They can take a minute. Okay.
Yeah, take a minute. You tell us when, Karishma.
Definitely, Vidita. 45 seconds up. So 15
Okay,
seconds.
15 seconds.
And some of them have already started writing it in the chat window. Right. Okay, guys. 5 seconds. Done. 1 minute.
Now I want you to tell me what's missing.
Okay. So you can all do the exercise on your own. For example, so Avishai said he missed telephone and guitar. And
No,
cake.
no. What you are, this has got 3 objects missing now. And from this, you have to compare to the previous image that I showed you and tell me what's missing in this image compared to the image I showed you first.
Okay. Like
So
compared to the first image.
It's a short-term recall to see if you were to see this now and say, oh, but I saw this, but there was this. Where is that object gone? I want you to tell me what's gone.
Okay. Then Vidita, Science says no pen.
Okay.
Pooja says pencil was also missing. Akanksha says scissor is missing. Janki also says pencil.
Okay. Anybody else with one more object? I'm telling you, it's 3 objects missing. There's
Okay,
one.
3. So
Yeah.
scissor, pencil. Kavish says bulb.
They're done. That's exactly what was missing. The pencil, the scissor, and the bulb. Right?
Excellent, guys.
Right? So you
Yeah.
clearly have excellent short-term memory recall, right? Really good short-term memory recall. Okay. All right. So what have we just done? We've done what is called a mini, tiny little bit of a brain workout. And a brain workout is always a good thing. So normally when you think of a workout, you're going to imagine, let's go to the gym and run on a treadmill, or let's lift weights, or let's do stretching, or depending on where you are, you might want to do yoga, or you'll do some Pilates, or maybe you'll play some team sport. So normally when we think about exercise, we're thinking about exercising our body. Well, I'll tell you, the more you exercise your body and look after it well, the better it is for your neurons as well in your brain, because they like it when you're exercising. So if you're going out to play tennis or cycle or doing some yoga, it's not just good for your body and your muscles, it's great for your brain. But your brain does many different other exercises are also there for your brain. And we just did some exercises right now. We did some puzzles. And puzzles are great exercises for your brain as well. So, it's not just those physical exercises, but reading a book, learning to play a musical instrument, sitting and thinking, where people will say, oh, what are you actually doing? Are you even doing anything? But you may be sitting and looking out of a window, and you're doing a lot of work in your brain when you're sitting and looking out of a window. It's not as though you're just sitting and looking out of a window. A lot of things are happening in your brain. So these are also great brain workouts. Okay. And in addition to that, the best brain workout is in the middle. You see that? What's in the middle? Sleep.
Yes, Avishuma, everyone recognizes that, Vidita.
Yeah, there's sleep, right? So sleep is a great brain workout. You think your brain has gone off? No, it's doing lots of interesting things. You're dreaming. And many things you learned during the day are all coming up in a weird way in your dreams. And that dreaming is essential for you to convert short-term learning into long-term learning and long-term memory. And for that to happen, if you don't sleep and you don't have that state, then that's actually not good for you. There's also something on the right-hand side, which looks a bit like a avocado, no? I mean, if you've eaten an avocado, not very common in India, but that does look like an avocado. Do you know what avocados are full of? Anyone have any guesses? You know what? There are carbohydrates and fats and proteins and all kinds of food. Do you know what avocados have a lot of?
Bhargavi says protein. Some say fat. Some say minerals. Okay.
Fat. Avocado has a lot of good fat. So do walnuts. So do almonds. And a lot of what your brain does is done by fats being in the right place. So, proteins are good. So is sugar. But the most important thing in many ways is the good lipids. So having good fats are also important for your brain. And the most important thing, which we tend to forget, if you're dehydrated and you didn't drink enough water, then your brain is going to be in serious trouble if you haven't had enough water during the day, which you will not even think about because you kind of just take it for granted. But having water and carrying that water bottle with you and making sure you actually drink it is doing a lot of good for your brain. Okay, so all of these things which you normally don't think of as important for your brain in terms of a workout for your brain, essential. All right. So, but what is the absolute best thing you can do for your brain? This is singularly the absolute best thing you can do. So the goal of today is to tell you that the brain is plastic and to tell you how best to keep your brain at its optimal level, right? So the best thing you can do is be curious and learn something new. It turns out that that's absolutely the number one thing you can do for your brain. And if you keep doing this, so anyone who tells an adult who's like 70 or 80, right? That's a pretty fairly old person. You say, oh, you want to keep your brain engaged. But the best thing that they can say to an older person is you have childlike curiosity. Oh, your curiosity is like the kind of curiosity that a child has. Well, the children in the Zoom talk are the ones with the best working brains out there because they have this already. So I will only tell them one thing, don't lose it. Don't ever lose that childlike curiosity. It is the singular best thing you can do for your brain. And actually, I think that's my last slide. I'm going to end with a little movie. This is from the Allen Brain Atlas. That brings me to the end of my slides. And
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. That was a symphony right there. The working of the brain is a symphony, right? Absolutely. It was a beautiful video. Beautiful. So we will take questions, Vidita. We have time.
Great.
There's been this perfect, perfectly timed talk. So that's wonderful. So Kavish asks, is dreaming like rehashing, remembering everything that's happened during the day? Do we know what dreams are?
yeah, so sometimes it is a little bit like that, in that some parts of your dream make sense, like bits and pieces of it can sometimes make sense. But like usually 80% makes no sense because it's out of connection with each other and has no real correlation. So suddenly you are running at full speed, then you're on top of a hill, then you've gone down into the bottom of the sea. And it's unlikely you did all of that on the day, but your brain will allow you to do a whole bunch of things in your dreams, right? But yes, there are bits and pieces, and we don't remember most of our dreams. A lot of our dreams we've forgotten. You might remember the dreams you just had right before waking up, but we're dreaming many times in the night. But if you don't dream, then that's a bad thing. Because somebody did experiments with people where they taught them something, and then at night when they went into dreaming, you can make out when a person is dreaming because there is a rapid eye movement. So you can make up. So you wake up the person the minute they're dreaming. And they wake up and then they're awake. And then they go back to sleep. And the minute they're dreaming again, you again wake them up. And you do this the whole night. The next day, they can't remember what you had learned. So dreaming seems to be essential to our ability to learn. So now if you have an exam and you don't sleep well at night the night before, then you can understand why this is not a good thing, because a lot of what you have learned is going to go out of your brain because you have not given yourself enough blocks of good sleep.
That's wonderful message, Vidita. The take home is sleeping is good, dreaming is good.
Yeah.
And good fat is good for the brain. So this
Absolutely.
is perfect. Perfect. So Vidita, Yashi asks, but I've read somewhere that neurons stop forming after birth.
Yes. So mostly you don't add a lot of new neurons after birth in most parts of the brain. So you saw that at 9 months, the brain looked pretty much like a fully formed brain. So it's largely fully formed. There are pockets in the brain where new neurons are added throughout life. Okay, so there are pockets. Hippocampus is one of those very interesting pockets. a pocket where learning and memory happens. Well, you also add neurons in some parts of the hippocampus throughout your life. You do it most when you're young, and you do it far less when you're old and elderly, but you do add new neurons. But you may not add neurons, but you can add tons of new synapses, remove synapses, change connections. You can do all that throughout your life. Right? So yeah, so part of that is true. There are parts of the brain you don't add new neurons, but there are pockets where you absolutely do.
Okay. Wow. So our brain is changing. Whether we call it growth or not is a different thing, but it's certainly changing.
It's changing all the time. It just changed in the last 45 minutes also.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It changed in the last 45 minutes of whatever you were doing when you were listening. It was changing.
So, Vidita Vaidya asks a follow-on question. For premature babies, do neurons develop after birth?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yes, they do, because you are talking about the loss of a window of time. And that's why in the NICU, when they keep babies in the ICU, they're also providing all the essential oxygenation. Those lungs are not yet fully ready to start breathing outside of the mother's body. So they are oxygenating the body and the brain. And there is still some amount of recovery in terms of mass. But one thing you will notice is that even babies that have not had enough nourishment, the body takes the hit, but the brain gets protected. So the head is much larger than the body. So more often than not, the way biology is, we protect the brain as much as we can, taking the hit on other parts of the body and protecting the brain. Yeah.
Interesting. So you may lose muscle mass, etc. But you'll
try your level best to hold the brain at steady. Yeah.
That's brilliant, right? To think about it. Janvi has been asking this question a few times. How much time does it take for neurons to transfer these messages, these packets?
Seconds, milliseconds. Yeah, very fast. You just imagine right now I'm talking, right? When I'm talking, I have some neurons in my motor cortex that are going down, and they have to move my vocal cord and fast enough for me to finish this conversation. So it has to be really quick. So this information is, if I take otherwise we will all be talking super slow, because my tongue has to move fast enough for me to get the message out, for you to hear it. You're hearing it. How quickly are you hearing it? It's not even taking you too long to hear, process, and understand and solve and quickly. Yeah. So yeah, very fast.
Very fast, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. If you think about it like that, they're all the time sending packages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you get up, you don't think, oh my God, I better send a message to my spinal cord that I don't fall down. You get up from the chair, you get up and you stand, you go to get a glass of water. You don't think, oh my God, so much effort, neuronal effort to walk to get a glass of water, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Now we can just go back and see if there were questions we missed, because I know we did miss a few. Yeah, we will just.
Did we ask a question which I think someone asked that can someone send messages throughout dreams? Someone asked that as well.
Yes. That was, so, we know dreaming is essential, but is dreaming sort of like a message for somebody? Is there some psychoanalysis done?
I mean, I think we all like to look for messages we look for messages and stories in everything in life. Okay. Whenever you see something, you try to say, oh, what is the meaning of this? Because we have a tendency to want to draw meaning from everything we experience. That also includes dreams, especially if you have a very strange dream. You think, oh my God, what is my brain trying to tell me, right? Some bizarre dream, you may ask yourself. But no, it's usually random things that are getting connected together. And some part of it may actually make sense because you may have experienced it in the last few days or whatever. And the rest of it doesn't make any sense connected to that. And because our brain is a sense-making device, we are trying to make sense of the world. We're also trying to make sense of our dreams.
Exactly. So for example, guys, Vidita, we have dreams like you're going to school with your grandfather.
Yeah.
Like your grandfather is your classmate. Like it's random, right? That's not real. You go to school and you have a grandfather, but he's not your classmate.
Correct. Absolutely. I used to have a recurring dream in which there was, and it came a few times. I had a dream in which there was a tiger that came into the colony where I used to live in when I was small. And this tiger had the ability to open doors. So even if you went and hid behind in a room, it had the ability to hold a handle, open the door and come inside. Now, this makes no sense, right? It makes absolutely no sense. But this was a dream. And I'm thinking, oh, is there really a tiger going to show up when I was a kid? But this is a dream I had a few times of this tiger that was capable of opening darwazas. So
Oh, wow, that's a story. That's a story in itself. Okay.
I
Kavish
think
asked-
Kavish asked that
Go ahead, Naveen.
does poison come between synapses and prevent the chemicals pass?
oh, absolutely. And the ones who do it the best are the cobras, who have something called a toxin called alpha bungarotoxin, which comes and binds and shuts down the message to your muscles, which is why it paralyzes its prey. And eats it up eventually. Usually it's not eating us up, but you don't want to be bitten by a cobra for sure, because it will block your neuromuscular junction. Then not only cobras, the puffer fish, which is eaten in Japan, the fugu pufferfish, it has something called saxitoxin. That's why when the chef says, oh, would you like to eat this delicacy, you have to sign off and say, I don't mind if anything happens to me, because that's a highly poisonous toxin. And the chef has to be very skilled to remove the toxin before cooking the fish. Otherwise, you will be in deep trouble. So there is that. Then there are the small snails which you find on the seashore, which you never even think about. Those little the shells that you find, inside that is a little mollusk that has a like a little tripod with which it shoots out a toxin. Now think about why it would need that. It's sitting in the bottom of the ocean. What does it want to eat? A fish. How fast can the snail move? How fast can the fish move? There's a bit of a problem. That snail is never going to catch that fish. So unless it poisons it with a dart, and the snail falls literally dead almost on top of the snail, there is no chance that snail will ever be able to eat that fish. And so they have very potent toxins that work super fast. Yep. Many of them.
Many examples.
Yeah. Scorpions also. There are many, many animals that have toxins that sort of work at the synapse.
Okay. Fascinating. So then Sahana asks, when we sleep, does this message passing slow down?
No, the message passing doesn't slow down, but interesting things happen because your concept of time is gone, right? When you and I are awake, we have a conceptual idea of, okay, now 30 seconds are over, 1 hour is over, it's time to finish the talk. There is all of this, but in your sleep, your brain is not shut off. Your brain is doing a lot of active things. There's lots of things happening in your brain. But the idea of time as we understand it is not there when you're not fully paying attention to something. Even sometimes when you are very attentive, you love something that you're doing, you don't know how fast time passes. And when you're bored out of your mind, time just seems to extend forever and ever. So time is also relative. It depends on whether you're enjoying yourself or not enjoying yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes you get up after 8 hours of sleep and say, where did time go? Like 8 ghanta nikal gaya. Like I didn't realize.
Yeah. And when you're not able to fall asleep, you are sitting and they have all these things of only old people have this problem. Younger people are falling asleep very easily, but old people will be sitting and think, oh, you have to count sheep. Why am I not getting sleep? You're not sleeping easily. So yes.
Exactly. And this is one more interesting question and we'll start wrapping up. I mean, so many questions, we don't know how to handle it. But Janki says, do we delete unnecessary information when we are sleeping?
Yes. So as important is addition, so is subtraction. Everybody talks about, you better remember this, you better forget stuff also. If you don't forget stuff, you're going to have a lot of unnecessary nonsense clogging up your brain. So forgetting is equally important. And you forget things that are not that important. Over time, unless you use the information, your brain doesn't keep things that are not useful. So after some time, which is not really relevant, your brain will forget it.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
That's why we say textbook knowledge is a bit dangerous, because if it's only in the textbook and it doesn't really matter to you, after a while, your brain is not going to bother keeping all this textbook knowledge inside. Unless you use that knowledge, it's only knowledge that is used that stays in your brain well.
That's true. Absolutely. Great point, actually, Yeah. When we study, we should think of how to use it to retain it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to go because there's no use to you after some time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And maybe one last question, Vidita. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
We missed one. Thank you. We missed one question that, some people struggle to convey messages. They may, for different reasons, speech difficulties, cognitive processing, etc. Or is all of this related to this transfer of messages? in some way?
No, it may not be. That does not mean that the brain isn't working equally effectively. In many cases, it is. But there could be an issue with, for example, people who stutter. There is no slowness in the brain at all. The brain is absolutely functioning fine. It's the motor control of being able to deliver the words that might have a little bit of a challenge. And yet people train individuals who stutter, and over time they can control the stutter, right? So it's not a given at all that there's anything really changed. People who are dyslexic, children who are dyslexic, the brain is fully functional. It's just that in this one, it's the same thing as saying there's some kids who are great automatically at playing football. That doesn't mean you shouldn't play football if you're not automatically great at it. You should play it. Because some things we are just automatically good at, and some things we just love to do. But the thing that will last is the thing that you love to do. The good at is going to come and go, and it will change. But the thing that you love to do will stay with you forever, right? It doesn't matter if you're quote unquote good at it or bad at it. If you love it, just do it, because it's what you enjoy doing. Yeah.
So that's brilliant. I think such a wonderful message that, brains are all different.
Yeah.
They keep changing. And
for example, I'm tone deaf.
Okay.
And my daughter plays the guitar. And I cannot hear anything that she's playing different from each other. So she's like, how can you not hear this, Mama? Like, but I really can't hear it. I have a real tone deaf problem. I cannot, even though I would love to. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate music. I love listening to music. But I am useless. If you ask me to do something with it, I won't be able. I can still enjoy music fully. It doesn't stop me from enjoying it, right? So the point is, you don't have to, your enjoyment should not be associated with performance. You should just enjoy it because you enjoy it. Not because, quote unquote, you're performing well at it or not. You enjoy it, you do it.
I take that message to continue my bathroom singing. I enjoy it. Whether other people can tolerate it, it's up to them. All right. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.